Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at the 31st chapter of the Quran, which is titled Luqman.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and it's named after this figure, Luqman. And it's interesting because there's debate among scholars about whether or not he was a prophet.
Right.
But he definitely left behind advice that's resonated through time. And what I think is so interesting is how his guidance to his son in these verses speaks to just something universal, like this yearning to live a life of meaning and purpose.
Yeah, it's that search for purpose, right?
Yeah.
That kind of just draws us in. And I think right from the start in verses like 3 through 5, it kind of lays out a foundation.
Okay.
The Quran is presented as this guiding light, this source of mercy. But it's specifically for those who really embrace the pillars of Islam.
The pillars, yeah.
Right, exactly.
So prayer, charity, belief in the hereafter, those are often presented as the bedrock of Muslim life. But I'm curious, do you think that these verses suggest something deeper?
Oh, for sure.
It's not just about going through the motions.
I think you've hit on something really crucial there. It's about internalizing these pillars.
Okay.
So prayer, for instance, isn't just about the physical act, but the connection with the divine that it fosters. Charity is about cultivating genuine compassion, not just a transactional act.
Right.
And belief in the hereafter. It's not this far off concept, but a lens through which we view our actions today.
That reframing is so powerful, like seeing those pillars as shaping our present, not just preparing us for the future.
Exactly.
But then the tone kind of shifts a little bit in the next couple of verses.
For sure.
Like verses 6 and 7 paint a pretty stark picture of those who choose distractions over faith.
Right.
Even going as far as to act with arrogance towards it.
It is a stark contrast. And I think what's fascinating is the psychology behind it. Like, why do some people actively turn away from guidance even when it's presented to them?
Yeah.
Again, it makes me think about, like, our world today. All the constant noise, the pull towards instant gratification, the fear of missing out. It's easy to see how those distractions, that arrogance of, I know better, can lead someone astray.
It's almost like a commentary on human nature itself. But then right when you're pondering those who reject guidance, enter Luqman, the wise sage himself.
Right.
And in verse 13, he cuts right to the heart of it, urging his son to avoid idolatry, to shun the worship of anything other than Allah.
And that's where we bump into the concept of shirk, which is the act of associating partners with Allah. You can almost imagine Luqman looking at his son, his face etched with concern, knowing that even in ancient times, there were so many glittering idols vying for people's attention.
Yeah.
And even today, aren't there modern idols?
Oh, absolutely.
Wealth status ideology?
Yeah.
That tempt us to stray from our true purpose.
It's so easy to get caught up in those pursuits and just lose sight of what truly matters, which makes verse 16 even more impactful.
But
Luqman reminds his son that even a seemingly insignificant act, whether done in secret or openly, is known to Allah. That must have been a mind-blowing concept back then, and honestly, it still is today.
it's a humbling realization, isn't it? To think that even the smallest deed, the fleeting thought, doesn't escape divine awareness. It makes you pause and reevaluate your choices, your intentions.
Definitely. Speaking of choices and intentions, let's dive into something I think a lot of people can relate to, the complexities of respecting parents.
Okay.
Verses 14 and 15 offer some really nuanced advice on this front.
Right, it's not just about blind obedience, is it? There's this beautiful balance that Luqman strikes. Honoring your parents is paramount, a fundamental duty in Islam. But what if their wishes clash with your faith, your own understanding of Allah's teachings?
Right.
It's a delicate tightrope to walk.
It's a struggle I've seen play out in so many lives, even beyond the context of religion, like trying to honor family expectations while staying true to your own convictions. It's something I imagine our listeners might be grappling with too. So what wisdom can we glean from Luqman's words?
Well, he doesn't shy away from the potential for conflict. He acknowledges that honoring your parents is crucial, but your faith in Allah, your commitment to truth, should never be compromised. It's like he's saying, navigate this challenge with kindness, with respect, but never lose sight of your own moral compass.
It's almost like an early call for critical thinking within faith.
Yeah.
Not just blindly following tradition, but wrestling with your own understanding, even if it means respectfully disagreeing with those you love. That's a powerful message, especially in a world that often pressures us to conform.
Absolutely. Yeah, and building on that idea of critical thinking, Luqman, he goes on to provide sort of a toolkit for righteous conduct.
Okay.
Verses 17 through 19 outline these core principles.
Okay.
Observing prayer, advocating for good, speaking out against evil, and above all, practicing patience. But it's that last one that really resonates with me in our modern context.
Patience.
Yeah.
It's a virtue that seems increasingly rare these days. We're so used to instant gratification, quick fixes.
Yeah.
But what does cultivating true patience look like in a world that's constantly pushing us to move faster, consume more, react instantly?
It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Luqman's advice speaks to something deeper than just enduring difficult situations. It's about cultivating a mindset of resilience, of understanding that growth takes time, that meaningful change rarely happens overnight. It's about resisting the urge to react impulsively, to lash out, and instead choosing to respond with wisdom and grace.
So it's like he's urging us to step back from the frenzy of the world and reconnect with that inner stillness, that sense of calm that allows for clarity and thoughtful action. And it's not just about patience in the face of difficulty, is it?
No.
He also emphasizes remaining humble even when you're successful.
That's a powerful reminder, especially in a society that often equates success with outward displays of wealth and status.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in that game, to let our achievements inflate our egos. But true humility, as Luqman suggests, comes from recognizing that all our blessings, all our successes, ultimately stem from Allah.
So it's about keeping that perspective, remembering that we're not the sole architects of our own fortune.
Exactly.
And there's a beauty in that humility. It allows for gratitude, for generosity, for a deeper connection with something beyond our individual selves. But even as we're talking about humility and righteous conduct, I can't help but think back to those earlier verses about the consequences of disbelief. It's a topic that can feel a bit heavy, especially when you consider the concept of divine judgment and accountability.
I understand. It's a subject that often evokes strong emotions, perhaps even a sense of fear.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that the concept of judgment in Islam isn't about punishment for its own sake.
Okay.
It's about justice.
Yeah.
Yes, but also about mercy. Allah is described as both the just and the most merciful.
Right.
His judgment isn't based on some arbitrary scorecard of good deeds versus bad deeds. It's about the entirety of our lives,
Yeah.
our struggles, our intentions, our efforts to grow closer to Him.
So it's not just about the outward actions, but about the inner transformation, the striving to align our hearts and minds with what is pleasing to Allah. And isn't that reflected in those verses where Luqman urges his son to not just go through the motions of prayer, but to truly embody its spirit,
Yeah.
to not just avoid evil, but to actively promote good in the world?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? We often think of Luqman's wisdom as being rooted in ancient times. But those very principles, promoting good, being a force for positive change, those are as relevant today as they were centuries ago. In fact, they might be even more crucial in a world facing so many complex challenges.
Thinking about those challenges, I keep coming back to those verses about arrogance and distractions.
Right.
It's almost like Luqman foresaw the very things that would tempt us away from a life of meaning and purpose. I mean, look around. We're bombarded with messages that equate happiness with material possessions, with status, with fleeting pleasures. It takes a conscious effort to resist that pull, to stay grounded in those timeless values he speaks of.
It does. And that's where Luqman's emphasis on self-awareness comes into play.
Okay.
It's in verse 18 where he warns his son against walking arrogantly on the earth, against speaking in a harsh or boastful tone.
Right.
It's a reminder to be mindful of our demeanor, of how our actions, even the seemingly small ones, impact the world around us.
It's like that old saying, actions speak louder than words. But Luqman takes it a step further, doesn't he? He's saying that even our tone of voice, our posture, the way we carry ourselves, those things matter.
Yeah.
They reflect our inner state, and they have the power to either uplift or demean those around us.
It's about cultivating an awareness of our impact, recognizing that even the subtle aspects of our behavior can contribute to either harmony or discord.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is a crucial aspect of living a righteous life. But Luqman doesn't just focus on outward behavior. He also challenges us to examine our beliefs, our assumptions, and even our inherited traditions.
You're talking about verses 20 and 21, right? Where he cautions against blindly following the crowd, against clinging to tradition simply because that's how it's always been done. It's a pretty bold statement, especially considering the context of his time.
It is. He's basically saying, don't just accept things at face value. Question them. Seek understanding. And ultimately align your beliefs and actions with what Allah has revealed. It's a call to engage in critical thinking within the framework of faith, to not shy away from intellectual exploration.
It's an invitation to deepen our understanding, to move beyond blind faith and into a realm of informed conviction. And it's incredibly relevant today, isn't it? We live in a world overflowing with information, with competing narratives, with a constant barrage of opinions and ideologies. It's more important than ever to cultivate that ability to discern truth from falsehood, to think critically about the information we consume.
Absolutely.
We are.
And that discernment, that critical thinking is precisely what allows us to navigate the complexities of our modern world without losing sight of our core values. It's what empowers us to make choices that are both informed and aligned with our faith.
And it's that critical thinking, that active engagement with our faith that I think leads us to these final verses of Luqman, verses that wrap up this chapter with a sense of both surrender and empowerment. Like verse 22 particularly stands out to me, the idea that submitting wholly to Allah and doing good deeds is like grasping the most trustworthy handle. It's such a vivid image.
It is. And I think it speaks to that delicate balance between effort and acceptance.
Okay.
Like we strive, we act, we make choices aligned with our faith, but we also recognize that we're not in control of the ultimate outcome. That trustworthy handle represents our unwavering faith in Allah, our commitment to righteous action, and the peace that comes from knowing we've done our best, even amidst uncertainty.
It's like a reminder that we're not alone in this journey, that even when things feel chaotic or overwhelming, there's a higher power guiding us, supporting us. But then verses 23 and 24 touch on a topic that I think can be kind of sensitive for some people.
Right.
The potential for sadness or frustration when those around us choose a different path, a path of disbelief.
It's a natural human response, isn't it? To feel a sense of disappointment, even a tinge of sadness, when those we care about reject what we hold dear.
Yeah.
But Luqman reminds us that ultimately each individual's return is to Allah. We can't force anyone to believe, nor should we allow their choices to derail our own journey of faith.
So it's about focusing on our own growth, our own connection with the divine, and trusting that Allah's wisdom and justice will prevail. And then verse 25, it almost feels like a gentle nudge to those who might doubt. The question posed is so simple, so profound. Who created the heavens and the earth?
Even those who might not identify as believers often acknowledge Allah as the creator.
Right.
It's an innate recognition of a higher power,
Yeah.
something beyond our comprehension.
Right.
But the verse goes on to highlight that acknowledging Allah's existence and truly knowing Him are two different things.
That makes me wonder, what does it mean to truly know Allah? Is it about memorizing scriptures, performing rituals flawlessly, or is there something deeper that Luqman's pointing towards?
I think it's about cultivating a relationship with Allah, not just the theoretical understanding.
Okay.
It's about seeking His presence in every aspect of our lives, recognizing His signs in the world around us, experiencing His mercy and guidance in our own hearts.
It's that intimate connection, that awareness of Allah's presence that I think really permeates the next few verses. This emphasis on His absolute ownership of everything, not just in a material sense, but in terms of His infinite knowledge and power. It reminds me of that breathtaking imagery we discussed earlier, trees as pens, oceans as ink, and still Allah's words would not be exhausted.
It's a powerful reminder of our place in the grand scheme of things, right? We often get so caught up in our own small world, our worries, our desires. But those verses pull us back, forcing us to confront the immensity of creation, the boundless nature of Allah's wisdom.
It's humbling, isn't it, to realize how vast, how intricate this universe is, and to know that it all stems from a single source, a single divine will. And then verse 28 brings our focus back to ourselves, stating that our creation and resurrection are like that of a single soul.
It's a verse that has sparked many interpretations over the years.
Yeah.
Some scholars see it as emphasizing the unity of humanity, reminding us that despite our outward differences, we all originate from a single source. Others focus on the individual soul's journey, the unique path each of us travels towards Allah.
Either way, it's a reminder that we're not isolated beings. We're part of something larger, interconnected, woven into the very fabric of creation. And that connection, that sense of belonging, is further emphasized in verse 29, where Luqman points to the cyclical nature of day and night, the sun and moon each running their course as a testament to the order and precision of Allah's design.
It's like He's saying, look around you. Observe the world.
Yeah.
There's a rhythm, a harmony, a purposefulness in all of creation. And within that grand design, each of us has a role to play, a purpose to fulfill.
And as we reach these final verses, Luqman brings us back to that essential truth, the fleeting nature of this life, the inevitability of death. It's a theme that has been woven throughout this entire chapter, hasn't it? This awareness of our mortality, of our accountability to something beyond this earthly existence.
It is. And I think the placement of these verses to the very end of Luqman's wisdom is deliberate. He's reminding us that all this knowledge, all these insights, all this guidance It's not just theoretical. It's meant to shape how we live, how we make choices, how we face the reality of our own mortality.
It's a call to action, isn't it? A challenge to take Luqman's wisdom and apply it to our own lives, to make each moment count, to live with purpose and intention, knowing that we will be held accountable for our deeds. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to those words of Luqman. Even if it were the weight of a mustard seed in a rock or in the heavens or on earth, Allah will bring it to light. It's a powerful reminder that even our smallest actions matter.
And that realization can be both humbling and empowering. It inspires us to strive for excellence in all that we do, knowing that even the seemingly insignificant acts of kindness, of generosity, of service are witnessed and valued by Allah.
So as you go about your day, your week, your life, remember Luqman's wisdom. Let it guide your choices, inspire your actions, and illuminate your path. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep reflecting, and keep striving to live a life worthy of the knowledge you've gained.